Welcome to our math lesson. Let's get started by reading our learning target. I can measure the length of an object by choosing and using appropriate tools. So remember, we've been talking about that word measure. When we're measuring something, we're trying to find the length, the height, or the weight of an unknown object, okay? Now, when we're talking about length, that is the measurement that tells the distance from one point to another, or how long something is. One of the ways that we can use to measure length is with a ruler. A ruler is a measuring stick that is marked in inches and in centimeters. Let's look at that word inches. Inches is a unit of length. And when we think about the length across a quarter, that is about 1 inch, okay? And then we talk about centimeters. Centimeters is smaller than inches, but it is still a unit of length. You can think about your pinky finger. Across the fingernail of your pinky is about 1 centimeter, okay? Those are units of length, and a unit is a part that is used to measure. So it is a consistent way to measure, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and in order for us to be successful with this learning target, there's a couple things that we need to be able to do today. We first need to make sure that we can use measuring tools correctly, so being able to use our ruler correctly, and understand the difference in measuring tools and units. So being able to tell the difference in between an inch and a centimeter, and then some other measuring tools that we will learn today. All right, so let's go ahead and look in our Ready Math Journal on page 515. 515. So we already know how to measure in inches and centimeters. Let's go ahead and let's review measuring in inches and centimeters. All right, where do we start the object at? We start the object on our ruler when we're at the 0. If our ruler doesn't have a 0, it's assumed that the 0 is on the end, right? The end of the ruler. Ruler can have inches and centimeters on it. That's the tool that has inches and centimeters, those units. Now, we need to go ahead and practice that first part of our success criteria, being able to measure and use measuring tools correctly. So Alex uses his scissors to cut out some shapes. How long are his scissors measured in centimeters? How do you know? So I want you to go ahead and practice using your measurement tool correctly and being able to tell the difference in those units, okay? All right, go ahead and measure your scissors. When you're done, you can come back. All right, so I've zoomed mine out. I know it's hard to see, but I want to be able for us to have some consistency. So this is about the size of your book when I have it zoomed out like this. So what we're going to do is we're now going to measure these scissors. You've already measured them, but now we're going to go over the right way to use the ruler to see if you were able to do it correctly. So we're measuring in centimeters. So we need to be able to determine which unit of measure is on our ruler, the inches and the centimeters, and know which side we need to use. We need to use the centimeter side, which are the smaller units of measure. Remember, about across your pinky. So we're going to start the ruler. There's not a 0 on mine, as you can see. So I know that it's assumed that I started at the end. So I'm going to put the beginning of my object at the end of my ruler. Then I'm going to follow all the way over to the end of my scissors, and it's almost to 10 centimeters. It's right before 10 centimeters. So we can assume that this object is 10 centimeters, okay? All right, so now let's go ahead and answer that first question on page 516. So how long are the scissors? They are about 10 centimeters long, okay? All right, and rulers often show inches and centimeters. Many rulers show 12 inches and about 30 centimeters, okay? This is equal to 1 foot, okay? So 12 inches or 30 centimeters is about 1 foot. And so that's what we would call 12 inches or 30 centimeters. It's equivalent to 1 foot. How many inches are on the ruler and how many centimeters are on the ruler? Go ahead and answer that question. Well, we can look and we see that there are 12 inches on the ruler, and we can look and see that there are 30 centimeters on the ruler. Now, our ruler is not the only measuring tool. We pick the appropriate measuring tool or the best measuring tool depending on the item that we choose to use. So let me ask you this. Do you think that centimeters was a good unit of measure to use to measure the scissors? Yeah, it was a pretty good unit of measure to use because it was small, and the scissors are not very small objects, but they're not large objects either. They're, it's on the smaller side. So centimeters was a good unit of measure to use, and a ruler was an appropriate tool to use to measure that, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and let's look at some other measuring tools that we have. You see a picture of this measuring tape over on the side. Measuring tape can also look different. Maybe it's in like a hard case and you pull it out. So there are measuring tools that are longer than a ruler, longer than 12 inches or 30 centimeters. So we have a yardstick, and that's 36 inches. And there are 36 inches in a yard, and that's why it's called a yardstick. So a foot is 12 inches, and a yardstick is 36 inches. We can also have a meter stick, which shows 100 centimeters. So there are 100 centimeters in a meter. And you have probably seen a yardstick before. It's the really long stick that has 36 inches on it. And then on the other side of mine is a meter stick that has 100 centimeters on it. And then, of course, a measuring tape can have inches and centimeters on it. So I want you to think about how this yardstick that I just showed you, how that yardstick is like a ruler, okay? How is it like a ruler and how is it different than a ruler? Go ahead and answer that question. All right, so let's go ahead and answer that question together. So a yardstick and a ruler both have inches on it. Okay? All right, so they both have inches. Now, the thing that's different about them is how many inches they have, right? So a ruler has 12 inches. And a yardstick has 36 inches. So it is much longer than the ruler. So what items do you think that you might use a yardstick to measure? Yes, larger items like maybe a table, okay, a bookshelf. Things that are larger than what we would need a ruler for. That would be a good way or a good thing to measure with a yardstick. All right, guys, we will continue working with our learning target and being able to choose appropriate tools as we learn to use more tools. Today, in order for you to be successful in this lesson, you should have been able to use a measuring tool correctly. So be able to use that ruler correctly. And you should understand the differences in measuring tools and units. So you should have been able to know the difference in inches and centimeters today. If you were able to do those things, you were successful in our lesson. If not, we need to continue practicing in order to reach that success, okay? All right, bye, guys.